Hey Vision family, a massive welcome to the first week of Connect Groups for Season 1, 2025. Come on now. Why don't you turn to your neighbor right now, give him a big high five, say it's good to see you, it's good to see you. Wherever you are watching from, whether it's Palmerston or Fielding or Payatua, we're just so stoked you're gathering with your Connect Group. And tonight we've got something really special. We've got a really incredible conversation we're going to be leaning into together as a church family. At the back end of last year, I had the opportunity to discuss with Keithen. Now, Keithen is the generations pastor at Church of the City, New York. He serves under Pastor John Tyson and Sam Gibson, who have had a lot to do with the last couple of years around prayer, and they've really championed us as a church in this whole area. And in this conversation, me and Keithen talk about the unique window that we have right now as the church, where cultural narratives have failed people in society, and there's a real openness of the human heart of what really is truth, and the responsibility that we have as the church to carry the light of Jesus into these areas. We then conclude, and Keithen really champions us around contending that God would inhabit our cities, that the presence of God would be so tangible and real across our city and across the nations really. And so he really charged us to continue contending. And there's a verse that we touch on in parts, but I'd love for us to keep at the forefront of our minds as we watch this conversation. It's John 7 verse 37. And it says this: "On the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, 'If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink.'" That Jesus ultimately invites us into a life of drinking from him and following him wholeheartedly. And it can be so easy to forget that as we go about our Christian life, but that is the cry of the human heart and the cry of the world right now that needs the light of Christ. And so keep that at the forefront of your mind. We're going to break after the discussion to talk with our group around what we got out of the video content. But why don't we lean in and enjoy this conversation with Keithen. How are you seeing that surface in students now in your ministry work?
Yeah, well, I think that a beautiful shift that I'm seeing from, I'm a millennial, was born in 93. So like my whole peer group was really like jaded, skeptical, kind of like just bitter and apathetic to the state of the world often. That like, I feel like millennials got really good at pointing out the issues of the world, but didn't actually like lift a finger to like actually do anything to like heal the world. And something beautiful, a corrective that I'm watching happen within young people and within Gen Z is that like the progressive narratives of just like secular humanism are starting to fail people left and right. And that's so beautiful because you're starting from a place of the things that we were promised, right? That just with enough time and technology and education that humans will progress toward a social utopia are just not true. I mean, it seems that the further that we are into the world of tech and AI and human connection on a level like we've never seen before, and access to wealth moving across the world is like unreal, but yet rates of suicide, depression, anxiety skyrocket, like a hopelessness like falls out of the floor. And you just watch like, this is not thriving. Like if you go up to a random young person on the street, is like, is this the way the world is supposed to be? I mean, unless they don't have a pulse, they're going to say like, no, this isn't the way that it was meant to be. And I think there's something rising in the hearts of young people, particularly New Yorkers that I've seen, that are just done with this kind of truth is relative, you do you, every path leads to health and human flourishing. Like it's just not true.
Yeah.
But having all of these narratives fail means that there is this window of opportunity for the gospel like I've never seen before. Right. And young people hungry to know, what is the path that leads to life? Like, what is the path that leads to flourishing? Because I've tried everything else and I've been told, choose your own identity. That will lead you to freedom, or just glom on to the ideology of a political party or of a whatever, and that will lead to flourishing. And it just like hasn't. Yet when people taste and see the life that Jesus has on offer through the kingdom of God, it is unlike anything else. I think Jesus gives a pathway forward to the life that Gen Z is actually longing for.
Sure.
Because like when you and I grew up, I know a lot in the American church, it was a lot about like, hey, you got to defend your faith and you got to grow up, you got to get the apologetics, you got to know how to defend your faith against, the evil secular world, whatever. But the energy of that often was fearful, it was insecure, and it was defensive.
Wow.
And so what happens when you try to pass on faith to another generation, but the whole flavor of what you're handing them is like, the world's got us on our back foot and we're bobbing and weaving. And we just got to like get our kids to like barely hold on to their faith through college and then hopefully settle down into successful American, Christian flavored lives. It was just like, that's not it.
Yeah.
And I've just found that like, if you come with like this understanding that like Jesus is the truth that Gen Z is longing for.
Yeah.
And every heart, this is Augustine's famous line, like every heart is restless until it finds its rest in God. Like if you trust that and you start to teach the Bible from that lens, you don't have to try to like force or manipulate or coerce or whatever. You're just like honest about the state of the world and reality. And then the brokenness of the world and the brokenness of society actually leads to like a more beautiful gospel than like a fearful thing that the world is crumbling, if that makes sense.
It's brilliant. We've referenced John a few times. I was thinking about it this week. Jesus says so many times, like, I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the gate. I am the good shepherd.
Yes.
I just wonder if Jesus was here today, and particularly in charismatic circles, he would say like, I am revival. And that revival isn't like a destination. It's a person coming to the hearts of so many people. And then what we experience through him is really like, but revival isn't the outcome. It's the person of Christ in us that is then forming and we're orienting our lives around.
Exactly. And that's why if you get revival through the lens of a bride that says, come, like that's so different because you're longing for the inhabitation of Jesus on the earth. And I think that's part of what grieves us when we think about great moves of God, even in the Western church, that we go from, we want to go from visitation to habitation. And that's very different. I think a lot of people, when they talk about revival, are content to just have visitation. Like if God could just visit our prayer meeting, if God could just visit our city for a bit, that would be amazing, and you have a certain percentage of people get saved and like all this stuff. But I think that even that, like most Christians don't even pray for visitation. Okay. So there's that. But I think there are levels deeper that like, we're not just wanting, like Asbury, we don't want just a 16-day window of the glory. Like we don't want momentary, like energy around church or God. Like we want an inhabitation where Jesus like makes his dwelling place on the earth. And like Second Chronicles talks about the eyes of the Lord like roam across the earth to find and strengthen those whose hearts are fully devoted to him. And like, would he, in a group of young people in one of the most secular cities of America, find a group of young people that are fully devoted to him, and just what that could do to welcome the presence of God to like not visit our city, but actually move into our city? I think that's what I'm more curious about. And that actually sustains your hunger and contending beyond just running really good church gatherings. You know what I mean? Like it's something so much bigger and deeper than that.
I love it. It's beautiful. Amazing. Wasn't that so insightful and encouraging? I just want to remind you before we break off to discuss with our groups around what we got out of this content, that next week onwards, we got 2 weeks of prayer and fasting happening as a church. I want to invite you to consider being a part of that. We've got a whole range of times that we've created so that as many people with different schedules can be a part of this season as possible. All the times will be on our website, visionchurchnz.com. And I would just love to invite you to consider being a part of this as a church as we see God and prepare for all that he has for us in 2025. Enjoy the rest of your Connect group. God bless, and we'll see you real soon.